Okay, so I wanted to make a Wordle game to learn some compose. I'm going to walk through that code and kind of give an overview of how this thing came together. On the side here, you can see the sort of the finished product. I went through and stole a bunch of 5-letter words from the internet. I moved those all into an array inside of the strings file. Inside of this viewModel, which is backing all of the data, I have two classes that I'm using. The first is this Wordle guess character, or character guess. That is each one of these individual tiles. I have the overall guess, which is the assortment of the tiles to form a word. Each one of these individual guesses has the character that represents it, so the N, the O, the D. There is a boolean for if it's in the word, which makes it yellow if it's in the word, and if it's in the correct place, it's going to be green. We can use these to solve the Wordle puzzle. And then I have a helper function inside of the Wordle guess to generate a blank one. These blanks are used to fill in the rest of the board down here. So we have our actual guesses, we have our blank guesses, and all of those together fill out the board. We come back to the top, we have our actual word that we're trying to guess, so that is whatever I'm trying to solve the puzzle for here. I have a list of all the past guesses. This includes the actual guesses along with the empty ones to put the screen together. I have an internal way to get only the non-blank ones, so every time a new one is submitted, I can trim off the blank ones, add the newly submitted word to the actual guesses, and then re-render the screen. I'm holding game state to know if there's currently a game active or if we need to go to like a game over screen and let someone start a new game. And then I have an error message, so if you put in a word, like say you've already guessed it, and I'm like, oh, I think I want to do that one, boom, already guessed that word. So this text is coming from this live data here. So to kick off, I want to start a new game. I'm going to grab a new random value from the word bank. I'm going to output it to the log because it makes testing easier, and then generate a bunch of blank guesses to help build out the board, and set our game status value to playing. Every time I submit a guess, it's going to come through. The first is going to see if the word bank contains the guess. So if I come back to this big list, is it even in here? Like, is it a possibility for a valid guess? If it's not, I'll let them know, hey, this isn't in there. So say I just guessed some garbage. Like, oh, not a valid word. Please try again. And then as I was just on, if I guess a word that's in there already, like I guess no digits again, it'll go through like, oh, you've already guessed that word. To do that check, I'm going to take each of the guessed words that I have. I'm going to parse all of them out to get just the character again, and then join it together with an empty separator to make them into just one string. And then I'm going to add the guess to the list here. So I'm going to go through, and for each of them, I'm going to grab the character, put it in here, check if it's in the word, so I look at the word that I'm using, it doesn't contain the character, and then otherwise, if this value is null, it'll just default to false, and then check if it's in the correct place, so if the index of the character is the correct index, then it'll get green instead of yellow. And then I'm going to go through and pull all of the non-blank guesses, so like just these ones in the top here. I'm going to take a new guess, pass all of the guessed values into it, and then whatever remainder I need, so if I want 6 total minus our current guesses, I'm going to throw all those together to regenerate the game board, set our new guesses, which is the list with the old guesses plus the one we just guessed, into our guesses value, and then run this check game status. All this is going to do is go through and look to see if I have any of my previous guesses where all of the characters are in the correct place. That means that I have 1, and then otherwise I'm going to look and see if I've made at least 6 guesses and I haven't 1, that means that I have lost. I've got a couple helper functions in here. One of them is to clear their error message. So I have an error message here. If I start to type, you can see that that goes away. And then I have an enum for the game state of just, am I playing, did I win, or did I lose? And if we flip over to the code that makes the UI, I've got a standard compose activity. I'm going to come through here. I'm going to generate my view model, pass it in the list of the arrays, or the list from the array of all the words I can use. And I'm going to tell it to start game. That is what generates the board, picks a random word, and gets things going. I have a game state, which is controlled by the model. I have a default value of playing, that's where we want to start. But anytime this game state changes, it'll come through and recompose this piece here. So if I'm playing, it's going to draw this whole game board, and then if I guess the word, I get the game over screen. The game over screen just takes a game state to know if I won or lost, the word I was trying to guess, and then a function to call to start a new game if we want to be like, yeah, start a new game. That's what this is here. So I'm just going to have a column, and then a little bit of text and a button. And then the Wordle game is what we're looking at over on the side here. I have the user guess, which is what I'm typing into the top. I have my past guesses, which is what I'm using to generate the board. And then the error message, which is populated if we happen to have an error. So I'm going to start with a text field. This is what we use to actually grab the user input. That is this piece up at the top here. Every time the value changes, I'm going to clear the error message. And then if I have less than 6 characters, I'm going to set my user guess to that. The undone lets me hook into this little green button down here at the bottom. So as I type something in, when the user hits that green button, it'll submit the guess for them. This is the text view for my error message it shows in between. We're going to populate it even if it's null. That way we're not conditionally rendering it. And what that does is stops us from jumping up and down. So if it was null and then you populated it, this grid at the bottom would jump down to make up for the space. It leads to a weird UI, so we're just not going to do that. And then for all of my past guesses, I'm going to come down here and do a Wordle guess row, which is what each of these are. So inside of that row, I'm going to pass it in all of my items from my Wordle guess. And then for each character that I have, I'm going to draw one of these cards, which is the actual box. And then the background color is going to depend on if the character is null, it's going to be white. If it is in the correct place, then it's going to be green. So we do that check first because it goes top to bottom. And it being in the correct place is more important than it being in the word. So it checks if it's in the correct place, green. Is it just in the word but in the wrong place, yellow. And then if it's not in the word and not in the right place, then it's going to be gray, which is these here. And then I have a text inside of the card, which is just outputting the character that we have. And then if I come up here and I guess the correct word, I won. Word was sound. I can hit new game, start back in the beginning, submit that. So I have an I and E. The other three characters aren't in the word. And that is a quick overview of how I built Wordle in Compose.